is quieting down. Seems like we've got to a lot of the smoke. Dub, you got smoke?
So, in the most recent Patreon episode titled Top Tier Corny, Melyssa Ford really stirred up some topics we've all been speculating for a while. But before we dive into that, let's talk about what's been going on with Melyssa herself. She's not just sitting on the sidelines. In fact, she launched her own podcast called the Menopod Podcast, which I think is going to be a hit. It airs October 1st, a Tuesday, which I believe is a brilliant move. Why? It doesn't conflict with the Joe Budden podcast schedule, which drops on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So now fans have another day in their week to tune into someone from the Joe Budden network, keeping us all locked in. Smart play, right? I think so. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Melyssa Ford has quietly been making changes to her side hustle. I stumbled across her Sleepers page on August 31st, which was called Melodies and Sleepers at the time. I was thrown off because, let's be real, all these podcasters seem to be making side money off the Sleeper segment. But fast forward to September 15th, she had changed the name to Melodies and Mel. Now, why the change? It looks like she can't use the name Sleepers because it's already tied up with the Joe Budden network. Could there be legal issues at play? You know how it is when it comes to branding and ownership. Things can get real tricky. What do y'all think? Was she forced to make that change, or was it a smart rebranding move on her part? Now, let's pivot to the real meat of the conversation. Melyssa also woke up the underlying tension between Joe Budden and Ish. Look at the files.
Your initial point was women, and then you threw me and Joe in the mix and said that men be competing, and I don't see the competition between Joe and I. But
why don't you see it?
Because I'm not competing with Joe. What do
Have you ever felt any level of competitiveness with Joe? Ever?
Monopoly, like games?
No.
You gonna let me
Fuck that.
Can I answer you?
No, I'm not.
Answer you,
I'm not
please?
talking about fucking board games. I am talking about the way you guys interact when you're outside, women present, etc.
I was in the middle of answering your question.
Fine. Okay.
To me, no, because I don't win nothing in a race. If I'm competing with somebody, it's something at the end to win.
Can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
Do you think Joe's ever been in competition with you?
I'm gonna go get a drink.
Now, is it a competition or not? Melyssa is seeing what a lot of us have been noticing, but couldn't quite put it into words. There's a deeper dynamic between Joe and Ish, one that goes beyond friendly banter. It's a clash of minds, not just egos. Think about it. Joe always throws little playful jabs, but when it comes to Ish, and his rebuttals, they feel more like haymakers. Ish often credits Joe's success to his money, especially when it comes to women. Now, Joe's the first to admit that his wealth plays a role. Like, that's a part of his tool bag, right? But Ish sometimes overlooks the fact that Joe could still get women without it. It's not like Joe hasn't pulled before the money, right? And honestly, just because you have money doesn't mean you don't get rejected. Do you all think Ish truly believes Joe is only successful with women because of his financial status? Drop a comment and let me know. Now, Ish tried to slip out of the debate by saying the only competition between him and Joe is a monopoly. Come on, Ish. We see right through that. There's something more going on, something deeper. It's almost as if Ish feels undervalued on the pod, like he's constantly trying to keep up mentally with Joe, but without wanting to admit that there's a competition. You can see the frustration when Ish feels like Joe is always trying to mentally one-up him. And Ish said it. He said it. He said that frustrates me when Joe tries to play mental chess because I am not playing those games. So, I do understand it, right? Now, Ish definitely sees himself as a bigger challenge to Joe Budden, though, than Ice, Parks, or Imani. He said that out of his own mouth. But Ish must think that his aggressive, argumentative style puts him on a different level. But here's the kicker. Ish doesn't see the point in competing with Joe if the goal is for both of them to win. And I do agree with him, because what's the point in competing if the whole team wins in the end? But Melyssa Ford, she broke it down in a way she only could. She took us through Joe's birthday party and how everyone on the podcast intertwines with each other. She's convinced that Parks isn't going anywhere. There's no contracts, nothing. Parks is a part of the Joe Budden podcast fabric. She said Imani, it feels like he's Joe's little brother and someone that Joe is guiding and bringing up, and E is just a vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like E is just a moving vibe, she said. She said, Ice, well, there's no competition there. She said Joe and Ice have a quiet dynamic, but Joe really adores Ice. But Ish, it's a different story there altogether. Melyssa described it like two magnets. If aligned, they attract. But if turned the wrong way, they repel each other. There's this constant undercurrent in their relationship that just won't go away. So, fellas, let's break it down. Ish loves being the man. And when he's in the back seat, it might rub him in the wrong way sometimes. We got a glimpse of this at Joe's birthday party where everyone was hyped to see Pretty Boy Ish. People screamed his name and you could tell he felt the love like Mitch from Paid in Full. But here's the question. If the crowd hadn't shown Ish that love, how would he ever reacted, right? What do you think? Is Ish driven by the acknowledgement? And let's not forget the little digs Ish be throwing at Joe, right? Like the time Joe had to check him about his season ticket packages, telling him, you don't need to know anything about my life. It was one of those moments where Joe had to put Ish in his place, and you could feel the tension. Ish talks about the cast like he's Joe Budden himself sometimes, saying stuff like, my cast did a good job speaking. And you can tell, like, Joe be just laughing that off and stuff like that when Ish be doing little things like that. So I want to hear from you all. Do you think there's a love-hate relationship between Joe and Ish? Like, is it a power struggle or is it something deeper, something more personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and do you think Melyssa Ford hit the nail on the head with her analysis, or is there more to the story? Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep it going, y'all. Is the dynamic between Joe and Ish more like a friendly competition or something deeper? I really want to know, man. I really want to know. And we'll be back with the files.
My guy Dub, too. That's my man, though.
Gang, gang.
That's my man, Big Dub.